What's going on, guys? It's Kai here and welcome to another video. Today's video we are be doing a EU versus US, well, more the differences, and we are lucky enough to have some guests with us. Now I appreciate these guys a lot for coming on, so a big thank you to everyone firstly, and we'll just do an introduction for people and it will just be more of a general chat because at the end of the day I don't want it to be like an interview. It is just a normal talk about the differences and how we can actually talk, because I know there's a lot of things I don't know about about the US, and there's obviously a lot of things hopefully they don't know about US. So let's introduce everyone. We'll start off with Saeed Sol here. If you wanted to give a little introduction of who you are, I mean, if they watch me, they most likely will watch you, I'll be honest, being from the UK as well. But give a little bit of a background, how old you are, what you do, and if it's your full-time job, or, just a little intro.
Cool. Yeah. Hi guys. Firstly, thanks Kai for inviting me onto this. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, my name's Saeed. I am also known as the UK's best looking sneaker botter. And I run a YouTube channel. I do some live cops. A lot of them feature me hitting those shoes, so it's not very entertaining, to be honest. But I also work for RAF as a PR. I run my own groups, run 3 groups, run a proxy company, and I'm also a full-time dentist, so that's what I do most of the time, and I sort of do this alongside it. I'm 24. I'm getting to that age now where I've got to like count the years. Yeah, I'm 24 years old. Shit, man, I'm feeling old. But yeah, I've been doing this since like 2018, as in like reselling, that is, properly. Been doing YouTube since sort of the start of this year and just been enjoying the ride. Yeah, thanks Kai, and I'm sure these guys would like to introduce themselves as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's good because I remember. I think I'll be honest. When Lucky Botter did a like a little video about you explaining that, was it like the state of botting in 2021 or something like that? And I remember watching it, and I'm a big fan of it because you're one of the only people that actually talk about the truth of it all. I found there's too many people like YouTubers that will just show them hitting clips and stuff, and they don't know what goes on behind, and like the amount of money and the amount of time, which we'll talk about after, like during this, because the amount of time that you have to put in is a lot more than people think, and God knows how you do your full-time job as well. It must be tough. We'll move on to the world's biggest bodybuilder, Botter. If you want to give your little introduction to yourself, and yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, guys, I am Bodybuilder. And basically, I've been doing this for, I would say, reselling about a year now. I got my first spot about a year and a half ago, back in January, which was Cyber. And Cyber just, I don't know, it's something about it. It just, I loved it. I always wanted it. I thought it was crazy paying $3,200 for it back then. But seeing the prices today, I'm so glad I got it. I do work full-time job outside of YouTube, which is retail management for telecommunications companies. So that does take up a large chunk of my time, as well as obviously going to the gym occasionally. As far as YouTube, though, it's been a fantastic ride, guys, and it's something I've always wanted to do, is get into it. I just didn't know the niche or how I wanted to do it until finally I was like, hey, why don't I just document my successes and failures along the way? And that's kind of how all this got started. But yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
No, I rate that. Something that stood out in my videos a lot is you show. I'm a big fan of your reviews, to be fair. Like not many people will actually do reviews of shoes, and something that I rate a lot is you actually try on the shoes. So many people are scared, right, to try on the shoes because they don't want to, make them not dead stock. You'll slap them on and rock them, which
yeah, that's the thing. Like, I want to try them on because I want to see what they're all about. I want to know what the hype is, because I live in an area where you can't just go try these on. I would say most people can anyway, even if they do have a sneaker store locally, which we have a few here, but I just expect that I would never be able to try them on. I want to see what they look like. And really, you don't know if you're going to like something until you try it. So that's a reason why, I like to show it off.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Definitely. Do you want to move on to Ricky Burger Kicks?
What's going on, guys? Obviously, it's your boy Burger here. Thank you, for inviting me onto this. I've been botting since late 2018. I got into it. First bot was A&B, the typical, the GOAT, the old reliable. I started and I was botting on I think it was the 700 Wave Runner, like restock or whatever, like the first restock they had, even though they've had like 12 now, because Kanye. But yeah, so I started with that and hit like, I think it was like 5 or 6 pairs, and That was basically like when I started. I didn't start YouTube until it was last year, basically around like when the pandemic started. It was like early March. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna start YouTube just like for the fun of it. And I was like, see where it goes. So I started off like just recording, just like my screen, no webcam, nothing. And like my first couple videos got like 1,000 views. And I was like, there's no way people are actually watching these videos. Like, no way people are just gonna watch these, because like if you're a nobody. And then I made my signature burr sound on one of my videos, and it kind of just kicked off from there. Kind of went a little viral on Twitter, and yeah, we're here now.
Nah, I like that. I rate that. It's weird because we're all like completely different to what I do. Like, I'm EU, so he's got a background with PR, and even though he's from the UK, he still watches US. And you've got Bodybuilder, you've got a full-time job. Do you know what I mean? You kind of do it more of a hobby, well, from what it looks like, and you enjoy the process. And then you, Rick Berger, you work part-time, which I fully understand, but you just want to hit shoes. You want to hit shoes.
Yeah,
you want to get them gone.
Yeah, I worked part-time through college just because like, obviously, having a job through college was good. My parents didn't really recognize shoes as a full-time job or whatever. So they're like, yeah, you need to get an actual like job. So I was like, all right, I'll work part-time at like just like a retail place and did shoes on the side. But basically all of last year, and then obviously like partially this year, like shoes was my main source of income. Like I made way more than what I made at my job. So
Nah, I completely get that, to be fair. It's really weird, like, I remember when I started, I don't know if it was the same with you, but I started when I was about 16, and my mum thought it was all a big scam, I'll be honest. Like, they don't understand, that's the thing, and I do understand where they're coming from. Sneakers is never consistent income, unless you've got your cook groups going along. You're never going to get a consistent income amount every month. Like, you'll have 1 month where you'll absolutely storm it, making thousands, and then you'll have another month where there's just been no drops, do you know what I mean? And I think that's where the real botters will decide, right, well, I'm going to keep doing this, or I'm going to have to, look at some sort of consistent income, because at the moment, especially, I think the biggest part of botting is just scaling. It is just scaling what you have, and just it's running all the bots, really. I mean, look at like AYCD Jake and stuff. It just proves that running a lot does get you a lot of success.
Yeah, well, like going off of that too, what you said about like how when there's no consistent months, like I know in like the US especially, like January and February are extremely dry, and there's usually like no drops. So like those months when you look at like your like inventory trackers and like what you've made, like you just lose so much money because you're still paying for your proxies. Like if you have subnets or monthly proxies, you're not just gonna discontinue them. So then you're paying for them, and you're really not running, not really getting any money's worth. So like those are the months where it's hard, because if you're dependent on like shoe income, you lose money. So
no, definitely, I do understand that, because it, like, the problem is people don't understand the amount of cost there is behind the scenes. Yes, you have your botting costs, but that's just the start of things. I mean, proxies alone, like people like I've known people to pay like even thousands just in running costs of proxies a month, which is a lot of money, and does add up if there's no drops.
Well, like Jake and Tiana, they both have come out and said, I think Jake said he spent like $10,000 or $15,000 a month, like just on proxies alone. And he even owns his own company too, like his own proxy company. So like just that's insane. Like you gotta spend it to make it, and some people don't understand that.
That's the thing. When you see the success on Twitter, like you see Tiana and Jake doing it, but if they don't hit, if they don't hit at least, I'm gonna pluck a number out of thin air now, but if they don't hit, say like 30 or 40 pairs a drop, like they're potentially not even making back their pre-drop input.
Yeah,
so
well, because like they rent so many bots. Like what was
exactly.
it on the one? Was it the last foam runner drop? Didn't Tiana say she rented out like literally 50 dashies or something like that?
Yeah,
and
people
were renting them out for like $50 to $100 per that day. So like right there, she's dropping like $5,000. Like
that's the thing. So there's actually pressure to really hit at that point. Like it's no longer like a hobby. It's no longer like an additional income. Like at that point, you're talking like significant investment. So you really have to be hitting a big clip. So when people see a clip like from Tiana, or if you see him hitting like 600, 700 pairs, that's not just from them just setting up in the morning 10 minutes for a drop. And then
they set up all
splashing.
Week, yeah, like
exactly. Like that's what they do. Like and then they're they're running and they hit their clips and they know the bots, they know the insides and outs of everything, and that's the level you got to be hitting that kind of thing, which is why I think it's just important that there is like an element of transparency, which these guys are all, to be fair, but it's something that in the past I think has maybe been conceived as something that's a lot easier than it actually is.
Well, yeah, because like that's the one thing that everyone like always hear, like newer people like, oh, I'm gonna buy this bot, hit these buttons, and cop shoes. Like people don't realize what actually goes into everything and stuff like that. Like there's so much more behind the scenes and so much more money you have to put in and stuff like that to even like remotely come close to having success.
Nah, I'm completely with you on that. Like, what I'm glad about is, to be fair, the last, I say months, maybe years, people are being a bit more transparent with it. Like, I know bottom was a lot different years ago, and maybe sometimes even when it first started, it was pretty simple as, setting up pretty quick and you could hit pairs, but it's just progressed so much at the moment. Like, anti-bots going up, bot prices, like who would have thought that like cyber is like, say cyber, I mean there's other bots like Dragon and stuff. You're talking like big money here. Like people are spending like yearly wages on a bot, do you know what I mean? And people sometimes don't really understand what, like you said, what goes into it. It is crazy.
Well, like if people are to buy like you said, like Dragon or Knight, like you're literally buying a bot that's 10, 15, sometimes even $20,000. Like you can buy cars for that. It's a down payment on a house. Like people like it's so much that people don't understand.
People forget as well. You don't have the money for the shoes, man. Like,
yeah.
Like you're looking at people hitting 400 clips. If this is, I know Yeezys are a bit dead at the moment, but if you're talking Yeezys with 180 quid retail, like you're talking big money, and that's within like a couple hours sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you gotta put up so much money too.
Yeah, now botting's definitely different. I mean, we were discussing earlier about when we started botting, but I personally started botting in 2018, and that was when Easy Supply was still Shopify. And let me tell you, that was a dream, man. That was a dream. Oh my gosh, that shit, like you just hit start on like NSB or anything, and or Balco, whatever, and it just used to cook, and the checkouts used to keep coming in, and I used to hit it with pretty half-assed setups. That's when they used to even ship to the EU, which was a dream as well. But no, it's very different now, and and the thing is now there's not one site which you can actually sit down and say, yeah, that's an easy site to bot. Previously, I think maybe like a year and a half ago, I think that was probably what Footsites was to a degree, if you compare it to things like, because that's when Shopify added their hardcore protection. Well, they added it a little bit earlier than that, but then people started realizing the potential from Footsites. That's when Footsites botting started to become like really mainstream, and Footsites bots started to come out as well. But yeah, like there's no easy site to bot. There's no easy site to bot now, and that's why I think that having all these high quality resources, you can't cut corners with resources now.
No, yeah,
you just can't. Like whether
like,
it be
back when I started, like it was around that time of like when the trophy room 5s dropped. Like literally, I remember I put NSB up, had like 40 tasks, and hit like 3 pairs, like easy. Like it was just so easy. And then like sites started adding bot protection. Shopify went down the drain, and then you had Footsites, which emerged, which was like easy for a while. And then they obviously upped their bot protection. It's like insane to hit now. And then it was Easy Supply. Easy Supply was probably the easiest site to hit as long as you had good Gmails and stuff. But with that going to like 3DS and stuff like that, it's really going down the drain as well. Like everything's just getting so much harder. So I see why people like that come into the game now like are all, skeptical, like, oh, I can't do this, like it's too hard, too much money you have to spend, like just because they're not adapting to like the changes that we've been going through as times progressed.
Yeah, I would not want.
So you said,
I would not.
Sorry, yeah, carry on.
You're fine. I would not want to start botting now, because if I did, I would be discouraged pretty quickly. And sometimes I feel that way already. Like I was just telling my wife a couple weeks ago, like, hey, like I haven't been able to hit anything in a while, and and I jokingly said, I'm just going to give it up. I'm done. And I just started laughing because I knew I wasn't really done. And then the very next day, I mean, over the course of several days, I hit tons of pairs, and and it wasn't just that. It could be PS5s or GPUs or whatever, but it all comes for me in spurts.
It definitely goes in cycles. Like I've had my cycles where like it just feels like any drop you go for, you're gonna hit. And then I've had cycles where you could do anything and everything. You could have the best bots, the best proxies, and you just don't hit. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
That's how I know with Easy
Everyone's been
Supply.
there.
Only I've never recovered. I can't even check out manually on Easy Supply. So I don't know.
All right. Shall we move on then to? Well, I've got some notes, but obviously we were going to talk about them. We talked about some of the differences already with EU and US. So from what I've got, the different sites, one of the main things I wanted to talk about was the differences. So obviously, a big part of US I've heard is Yeezy Supply. We don't have Yeezy Supply. Adidas don't even drop first come first serve it in UK. So tell me a little bit about Yeezy Supply because I have no clue about it. So fill me in. Either all three of you run it. So whoever wants to jump in.
I could start about it. Well, basically, Yeezy Supply right now is all dependent, obviously, on your Gmails. Like, you want to have 0.9 scores because those help you get through Splash like the easiest, which sometimes you don't even get through with 0.9s, just depending on how bad like their security is and stuff like that. But basically, I would say Yeezy Supply is one of the like less complicated sites. Really, most of the bots you just plug your SKU in and just plug proxy in, kind of just click start and just go. And kind of just hope and pray you get through. There's really not much you can do in terms of like once you start tasks, like you don't really have to mass change anything or do this, do that, or it's usually like once you start, you kind of just let it go. But it used to be a lot better when they didn't have all like the 3DS and stuff like this on like payments. You used to be able to like check out a lot easier. Now you get a lot more like fraud declines and stuff like that, or like 3DS payments, which slow everything down. So I don't know if you have to add anything.
Yeah, we literally don't have anything to do with like Gmail scores in like any sites. The only site that obviously you want good Gmails for us is Supreme because that's where speed matters, and that's what you really need is your one clicks. But in terms of like for Foot Locker and stuff like us, we don't even need certain emails. It's quite there's so many differences. You don't realize.
3DS was a big deal for US when it first launched on Yeezy Supply. And I remember when it happened and nothing worked, did it, on that first drop when 3DS dropped basically.
It was like bots worked, but none of them actually had like real checkouts in a way. Like the only bot that really had real checkouts, because it happened on the bright blue 700s. And the only bots that really had like actual checkouts that stuck were like Ganesh. Because Ganesh already had like 3DS implemented from EU, obviously. And I think there was another bot that worked where like most of the checkouts stuck. Like I remember that drop I ran Valor, and I had like 10 checkouts on Valor, and I was all pumped because I thought like I cooked, and I got 0 pairs from it. So like the bots, people hit clips, but they weren't actual like clips at all because it was like all fake success.
It was an interesting thing because I remember because it got implemented into EU as well in, I'm trying to think now, was it like 2018 or something? I may be completely wrong in this. I feel like I'm going to get bashed by some EU guys at some point. But
I can't even support you. I have no clue.
I think it was like late 2018 for a lot of things, but 3DS is just complicated because especially in the EU where I think it's part of like EU law for checking out. It needs that level of security clearance basically to check out anything. And just imagine scaling that up, not just from Yeezy Supply, but in the EU, obviously, there's not just like one site type. So, for example, in the US and Canada, Shopify encompasses a lot of sneaker sites, whereas in the EU, like all of these sites are custom, like every single one is custom. So for every single bot to then code a 3DS solution for every single site, it's just a bloody pain in the arse for a bot dev. But I mean, we're at that stage now where 3DS is sort of the least of our worries, I think, when it comes to EU botting, because there's just like 1,000,001 other problems. But yeah, I mean, but EU and US, I mean, EU was notoriously more difficult than US, I think, when this is just from someone who's sort of split in between the two, because obviously I'm in the UK, live in the UK, but I bought US, not on my own card. It's actually bought for one of my admins in Essentials. But what we found before in the EU, especially before Foot Locker EU moved to the new regions, which are a bit more similar to Foot Locker US, was that it was just really difficult to bot basically Foot Locker EU, which is the main site for stock, unless you are from one of those new regions. And it took about a year and a half, I think, for all the EU regions to move over to that. So in a way, Foot Locker EU botting has only just really kicked off again for a lot of these regions which have just moved over to the new site.
Because
Sorry, yeah, carry on.
No, I was just going to add on to that with Foot Locker, because it was only recently that, like in the last month, that UK finally changed to new region. And essentially, I don't know, obviously US you might not know, but new region, old region is basically Foot Locker was moving to a different site essentially, and basically they were slowly moving regions over. I'm guessing it was more of like a testing to make sure it could handle. And what you saw is the big regions. Well, I say big regions, but UK main regions of EU. They were the last ones to move over. So you saw sites regions like Greece, Poland, Czech Republic. They were more first to change to new region, then it slowly went over. And I'm not joking, like old regions, what UK was for ages, these drops would last 4 hours, and I'm not even joking. Like it would be a 4 hour long drop. You'd have permaqueue up for ages, and the problem is there was no DCs or ISPs. They were all banned, so you had to run resis. And then when you're running resis for 4 hours and you want to run a reasonable amount of tasks, I'd say a reasonable amount for an average user would be about 600. That's probably a guess. Obviously some are going to run more, some run less, but if you're running resis for 600 tasks for a couple hours, you're talking over 10 gigabytes of resis just gone in one drop.
Well,
and
that was
that
what
was
happened
hard.
on US too, when they switched to like the whole permaqueue thing. Like people would burn through like 30-40 gigs in like a 20-30 minute job, because you'd be running 2,000-3,000 tasks and everyone's running resi, and just boom, gone.
I remember when something with US, and someone was complaining. They're like, "Oh my god, the permaqueue is up," and I just saw something in the EU said, "Welcome to EU botting." I was like, "That's all you see. All you see is permaqueue."
Yeah, it's something that you sort of got used to in EU botting. I think everyone remembers, well, if people who were sort of botting Foot Locker EU in like 2018-19, I think it was after the Court Purples, the Air Jordan 1 Court Purples. I can't remember which. That was 2019, right? I think. But it was, yeah, it was those. So it was after that drop when Foot Locker EU was basically clipped for like a year. Like if you lived in any country that wasn't like the sites that Kai mentioned earlier, and it was just rough. It was rough because the majority of botters probably came from these like the UK, France, Germany, like these, like, you know, some of the more populated countries in the EU. So it just became a very complex environment. Now it's much more accessible again. But in terms of US sites, I mean, I certainly think, this is from someone who's done both, I genuinely still think that US botting is far easier or far more accessible than EU botting is, because you can get a couple bots and there's only a few site types, and then you learn those site types, you learn those bots, and you're fine. The issue with the EU, as I mentioned earlier, is there's just so many different sites. Like there's so many different site types, and they change all the time. They're always custom. They're always changing, and it's very difficult. So I feel like what you tend to find in the EU is people tend to be very, very good at one or two sites, like really good, but then the others they don't even bother touching.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like I'll be honest, because I've slowed down a bit on botting since I started my job, but like I've just kind of said to myself, I was like, I'm not going to be on my computer all day. Foot Locker is basically the only one I can bot. Okay, all these other sites, they don't have a specific time they drop. I can't be these people that are like. I don't blame them for doing it, but people who are at school have got a lot of time on their PC. That, you know, they can sit on the PC, they can watch monitors ping, and they can start running at the time. But like what you'll see is people, they pick the sites and they try and master the sites from there. And it does show with EU especially the amount of sites. There's like so many different bots, and there'll be one bot that does well on one site, and another bot does, like, if you want to run every single site, it's simply just not even possible. You can't select. You kind of got to pick your sites, and I get so many questions, and I'm sure everyone else is saying. We had a little talk about it before. What's the best beginner bot? And there's no such thing as a beginner bot, in my best opinion. It's all what you can afford for a start, and two, what you want to focus on. How much time have you got? The only reason I bought Foot Locker is because, like, luckily for us, I can start tasks on my Cyber app, and I've got AYCD solve my captures. Do you know what I mean? I don't have to be at my desk. These sites like Mesh, you need to be at a desk changing the SKU. You need to be, these proxies got banned, I need to rotate them out for different ones. But luckily with Foot Locker, for me, I can just kind of leave running and don't have to worry about it. Do you want to start off that side?
Is it just EU sites? To be honest, I don't think I'm even qualified to answer this anymore. I've literally not touched an EU site for over a year and a half. So I don't think I'm qualified. If I was, however, I think it would still be Foot Locker EU for me.
I'm completely the exact same. I literally at the moment only bought Foot Locker. If I had, this is another whole different debate that we did also talk about a little bit with the whole mesh. Mesh is like something that I do want to get into, but like that's like JD size Foot Patrol. But the problem is like if you want to cook hard, you need a back end bot, and these bots just aren't accessible. So I'm gonna have to be the same with Foot Locker, and which moves on to a little thing with the regions. Is I don't know if you're the same, but we use reshippers basically. So we bot all the other countries, and we get them reshipped to us. And now I don't know if you know about UK, but the whole Brexit thing, like we cannot get shoes shipped off to us from a different country without getting shipped. Without getting import fees over £100. So like the game at the moment is really messy, especially with Foot Locker, because they distribute the stock all to different countries, and you just don't know which is going to get the most stock. Let's flip the question though. Me and Syed both said Foot Locker, which is probably one of the hardest sites to bot, but it's probably the easiest to set up for, to be fair, just because it doesn't take too much. You don't have to watch your tasks at the moment. You can just sit back. But what do you think for you guys?
Well, for me, right now it's foot sites 100% because I really haven't even been botting foot sites that long. I want to say last June was when I got into it. And the only reason why I did is because someone at work said, hey, I want some of the flints. Can you get me a size 12 in the flints? I said, sure. So I ran it up. And I got like 3 checkouts in 30 seconds. I was like, this is the easiest botting of my life. And I checked StockX, and they were hovering around 270 at the moment. I said, well, screw it. Let's get a few more. So I ended up checking out 15 pairs, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but for the first time you ever get a small clip, it felt really good. And, so I started eBaying those off as pre-orders, and I couldn't believe how much money there was. So that's really whenever I got into it. But to get back on track, I would say foot sites is definitely my favorite now. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, I like to plug and play. So all my bots are already set up. All I got to do is plug in SKUs, hit start, and I'm done. So for me, it's just the simplicity behind it. I run on a server. So if I'm at work, I just remote in real quick, add in the SKUs, bam, done, walk away, and I can continue working while the bot goes to work. So that's why I like it.
Yeah, I'm sort of at the same boat. I like foot sites a lot because, like, even though they're sometimes hard to hit with, like, certain proxies and stuff like that, once you figured out like which proxies work, like especially if you have ISPs and stuff like that, they're actually fairly easy to hit. I would say you just have to worry about like cancel rates and stuff like that, because those are the only thing that really suck. But it's funny you talked about that powder builder with the flints, because that was the first job that I ever ran like on foot sites where I actually like hit myself like a clip where I actually got more than like 10 checkouts on a single drop. But yeah, so that was like the turning point for me too. I was like, wow, like I actually did it. I actually checked out more than 10 pairs.
Nowadays, I'm lucky to get 2. So
yeah,
I'm just saying, things have changed.
Yeah, I mean, like I completely agree with it. Like it's always changing, and that moves on to the next thing I did write down was the future of botting, of reselling. Like in my opinion, with botting, it will always be a thing. Like there's a scare with the EU. Like recently we've seen sites start slowly move to raffle. I don't know if that's like that for US, but you hear a lot of people saying that, sneaker botting is going to die. They're all going to go to raffle. And in my opinion, reselling and botting will always be a thing. First come, first serve sites will always be a thing. I don't believe that all sites will go to raffles just because of the pure fact of these sites, yes, they care, but they don't. At the end of the day, they're selling their stock. Do you know what I mean? If they're going to release stock, these developers, they're on a next level. Sometimes they're always one step ahead. No matter what they do, sometimes there's always going to be some way of botting. And in terms of in what's going to resell, shoes are always going to resell. I see people that say like, oh well, Yeezys at the moment, like Yeezy used to resell loads, but now they don't. But then you got to look at it like you look at Dunks about 2 years ago. Like you could just see Dunks. Like, well, in EU, Dunks weren't really a massive thing. Obviously, you had like your crazy hype pairs, but like recently now, like every Dunk's a cop. Do you know what I mean? It all changes, and I want to get your opinion on the future. Do you think it's more going to random resell? Do you think it's going to stay shoes? And future plans with you as well?
I think as long as like things keep going the way they are, with like in terms of like Nike producing shoes that are more limited and stuff like that, there's always going to be resale. I don't know if botting will always be a thing. Like I don't know if it'll stay forever, but I mean I feel like as long as like devs can adapt to what's like going on and stuff like that, I feel like it'll stay. But I could be wrong.
It's so funny that this got brought up because I've literally been thinking about this nonstop lately for like the last couple of months. And I was actually thinking about earlier today that I'm definitely seeing everything switch over to raffles. And it takes me back to a podcast that Lucky Botter did a few months ago with somebody where they talked about how raffles will probably be the future. And I think we're already seeing
Dark
it.
Queen.
Yeah.
Insane, man. He's insane with the whole raffle button.
Yeah. So all that being said, I've thought about doing like even raffle botting, but I that's an area I know nothing about. But
Raffle botting is it's one of those things you can cook, but it's also it's so time consuming and it's so money consuming. Cause like I have a friend who does it and he does extremely well. Like he hit like easily like over 100 pairs of the Hall of Fame Kobe's, and he had like 40 pairs of the Hawaii Dunks. Like, because like once you figure it out and you find like the low key like small shops that nobody knows of, or like the sites that nobody knows of, like, and you enter them, like your chances of winning them are so much better. And like he's definitely mastered it, but he's also definitely put in so much time, like, because you have to make profiles, you have to do everything for that. And like the emails aren't cheap because you have to get good quality emails that are aged, because otherwise they get clipped. And like recently he had the one because he has like 2.5k Gmails, and normally for every 100 Gmails it was when you bought them, like if they were raffle Gmails and forwarded to like one email address, it was around like $90 per 100. So like you had 2.5k emails, like obviously you're spending a lot there. You're spending a lot on proxies to run. Like, so it's one of those things, and you could literally hit zero because it's all luck. You could get filtered out, or you could hit a lot. But, and then like, he definitely is probably in the positives with it because obviously he hits a lot. But like just last week he lost half his Gmails. They all got banned. Like, so he has to rebuy more and stuff like that. So it's a big expense.
I think definitely the Gmail matters, because I will say I've never won a single raffle in the 2 years that I've been entering raffles, ever. Never once, except for one GR, which I don't count. But in March, I finally decided, okay, I'm going to start entering every single raffle that pops up on the raffle monitor. So I literally have done that. And in 2 months, I've hit over 10 raffles. And I don't do multiple accounts. I don't do a crazy amount of entries. I do one entry per site. I use the same Gmail that's always being farmed 24/7. And I think that has helped with some of my success. But I can almost say that I'm hitting more on raffles than I am with botting, and which is crazy. And a lot of it is good stuff too. Like I hit the undefeated Hall of Fames. I want to say, I mean, there was just multiple dunks in there, but just a lot of different things that I would have never expected. But it's all about consistency. It's about doing literally every single raffle that pops up on the monitor. I'm the only one that puts a little green check on each one, so I know that I'm doing them. But yeah, it's been insane.
It's definitely something you have to be super consistent with. And you have to keep things like very similar. Like when you're entering like Gmails on one site, like for that next release, you have to use everything the same, because otherwise if you switch stuff up, they're gonna be like, oh, why is this switching up? Like why are you using proxies from New York one time and the next time you're in California? Like they're not gonna like. So you have to keep things very consistent and stuff like that. So
I agree with that. The thing is that like people underrate a lot is people make a lot of money manual. Like the manual, like people who take serious like the whole manual sneaker game, they hit pairs. Like we have it, like I don't know, we call it looping, like in store. And I'm not joking. These people in London, what you see, they're always on the little scooters, the electronic scooters, and they'll loop these stores. Right, they have their big Sports Direct bags. You don't know what Sports Direct bag is, size on there, but they have their big bag.
Well, I assume it's like an IKEA bag or something like that.
Yeah, literally.
Basically.
And what they'll do is they'll just loop the stores. They'll go get one pair. And it's kind of helped with the masks, because basically what they do is swap the mask, swap the coat, and then they're in again and buying more pairs. And like these people,
that happens a lot in the U.S. But with the U.S., I don't know if if EU like in-store releases are usually first come first serve, or if they're raffles. But like most of the stuff in the US, especially like on Foot Locker, Foot Sites, are usually done via the apps, but some stores don't. And I know a bunch of people like around my area that go and loop in stores. Like they'll have backdoor connections where if the store is doing like first come first serve, they basically take almost every single pair and stuff like that. So like
It's a
it
big
definitely,
problem,
if you know what you're doing manually, where you don't bot, like you can easily make tons of money. Like if you have those connections.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There, like it goes to the back of the stage of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Do you know what I mean? And once you find that one store, say that you know gets like the thing with UK especially is like you know that these big stores in like the big cities are gonna get these shoes, but like you want to find these low key stores that like aren't in these big cities, but they still get these hype releases, and that's what it's all about. And a big part that I rate is people growing their social medias. I mean, everyone here is growing their social media. Look at the YouTube, for example. People don't like. You don't have to bot to make a good amount of money from shoes. You can do the whole kind of side. I know a lot of people who just do investments. Yes, that requires a lot of money, obviously, but so does botting at the end of the day. So does every business. There's going to be no business that you're going to make millions without putting the money in. And the people who do it perfectly are the people that do everything. So that yes, they're botting to get their stock, but they're also growing the platforms. They're also associating with some people. You know, everyone here is associated, might be with a Cook Group or something like that. And it's all about getting these little different sources of income. Like say you might only be getting £200 from going into a store and making money on that month, but you got to remember it all adds up, and that's where the scaling comes to things. And I'm bad for it because like if I get pairs from botting, I always say, oh, these shoes are going to go up, and they never do, to be honest. I mean, I had about 15 pairs of Zions that I believed and believed and believed, and it got to 6 months and I thought nothing's happening here. And
When you
take
talked about the whole thing about doing both, like looping in store and botting, I'm pretty sure it was this what popped in my mind. I think it was back when Nova first started and he was first reselling. I'm pretty sure that's what he would do. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was his vlogs where he would like he would set up his like bots at home, like especially when he would do Supreme. Like he would set up his Supreme stuff. He would also go in store, like if he had times, and he would literally like bot mobilely sometimes. Like he would just he'd be going to the store so he could loop the in-store, buy stuff there. He'd also be going for it online, and he would do that with like shoe releases too. Because I'm pretty sure like I think it was one of his early videos where he was like in line somewhere and he had his laptop out and he was like connected via like a hotspot, and he was botting from his laptop while standing in line for the shoes so he could get them like in store too. Like so like stuff like that, just like looping in store and doing all that stuff like allows you to get like better income too, because you're not limiting yourself to like one thing.
Oh yeah, you want to hit all avenues, 100%. That's why like sometimes I'm botting let's say Finish Line, but then I'll suddenly pull out the app on my phone, and just the other day, I can't remember what drop it was. I think it was maybe it's the UNC's, but I got through queue manually before any of my bots did, and I got my size 12 that I needed for personal. And then later, like 10, 15 minutes later, I finally got my first botting hit. And it was just crazy. I'm like, how in the world did I get this manually when I've got hundreds of tasks running? But, you know, that's how it is sometimes.
Well, that's why, like, Foot Sites, it's kind of weird now. You can't really do it anymore because their sites are just terrible. You can't even add to cart. But before, like, probably like a year ago, that's what everyone would do. Like, you'd start your Foot Site tasks, and then you'd open up 4 tabs of each, or like 4 tabs. You'd have one on each site, and you'd sit there manual. And half the time you'd be able to get through manual, and then you'd be able to just log in and check out. Like, it would be a smooth checkout. So, like, that's why people always used to say, like, go manual when you're doing bots and stuff like that, because you're not limiting yourself just to one thing. Or, like, on BOGO drops, everyone always says, run your bot, but also run manual or use your phone, do this, because, like, if something doesn't work, you're not limiting yourself.
Definitely. I completely agree with that. A big part of it as well is like people forget about the whole marketing side, and that's what I do want to I want to touch on this a little bit, because I know a lot of people who don't even buy manual much of the time. They'll buy off other people for resale, but they'll have some sort of platform or marketing so they can sell for that a little bit extra, and that's how they do make the money. And I mean, marketing is a whole different side of the game. I mean, we've got this idea that you're PR, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about the side of it and the state of it at the moment, because I remember in your recent video you did talk about it, and it'd just be nice to know, like, how does the marketing actually affect the bot? Because at the end of the day, Wrath, the bot that you're PR with, is always going to be reselling, and it's always going to I don't know how to say it here, but it's always going to sell out for restock. So how does marketing actually help at the end of the day, because you're going to sell all your copies?
Exactly, yeah. No, it's an interesting concept, because typically when you market a product, you're marketing for the purpose of selling that product, right? Marketing a bot is very strange territory, but for me, to be honest, this is the only real marketing that I've ever done within this industry, is sort of marketing for products which are usually out of stock. So for me, I didn't really know any better since I started sort of dabbling with working with bot companies since 2018 with Balco. But I mean, what it is it's just giving off as much information about the bot as you can, and just sort of appealing to people who could be potential consumers in the future. I think that's sort of the way that we direct things. But as you said, it's always going to sell out. We can literally do no marketing at all, drop a checkout link, and it's still going to sell out. It doesn't make a difference. But what it comes to now, especially with the direction that sort of Jason... So if you guys don't know the structure of Wrath PR team, so it's myself, Anthony, and Nicholas B2. And then obviously Jason's the owner and dev of Wrath. Yeah, Nicholas, I don't even know why it's there, to be honest. Yeah, like we sort of just work within that team, and the main aim is for brand image. And from that comes different things like... I don't know how to describe it, but it kind of makes sense working in that team for the goal, for the aim of just establishing something strong. And we were discussing Cybersoul earlier, and I remember you, Ricky and Bot Builder were discussing earlier about how Cybersoul's held its value so strongly. This is something that I've discussed in one of my videos a while ago, but Cybersoul has always been super strong in terms of holding its value.
To me, it's that bot. Like, you think... If someone's like, people that are new in botting, well, like I've had people, like when I'm cashing out like shoes like locally, who aren't really like botters, but they sort of understand it. Like it happened last Friday when I was buying shoes. Because like the owner of the store always like introduces me to people, like, oh, this is like our bot kid, like he's the one that always helps us. And the first question people always ask, oh, do you own Cybersoul? Like that's what they say. Like Cybersoul is just like they've done so well like marketing themselves to make it just like. So, like, that's who you think of. It's just Cybersoul.
What else would you like to move on to? So we're talking about PR and how that affects. And I think a lot of it is building up hype, isn't it? You see, there's a lot of bots that may not even perform that well, but just because they have a good PR team, they actually show that it makes it look. It gives the kind of perception that the bot is doing well, and then you kind of target your different bots. And like we were talking about before, the fluctuation of bots absolutely stupid. And it's not. I know it's not as bad in EU, but in US, like you said, it's always a different bot hitting, and the amount of fluctuations. Like, for example, like I know Polaris. Polaris actually at one point killed EU, and I know it was one of the best actually Yeezy supply bots at one point. I think it was even at like 4,000 to 5,000 or something like that. And look at it now; it's at $700, and you've got a feel for these devs, because the only reason why this bot, Polaris for example, went down from, I think I bought it at 2K and now it's gone down to like $700 or something like that. And he's a solo dev, and at the end of the day they need breaks, and you've got people hating on him and saying, why aren't you doing this, why aren't you doing that? And you've got to have a life. And when
Splashforce is the same way, like
exactly,
or Supreme, like those bots are single dev. It's not easy to work when you're a single dev, because like sometimes it just takes over. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
like you're
definitely.
just so gone.
And I think that's
especially
where
when it's single site as well.
Oh yeah, like
Sorry,
yeah, because like you can't get your mind off of something, and like, or like for me, like Supreme, I feel like once everything started changing with like security on Supreme, like he didn't know what to do, and that's why like the bot hasn't done anything. People still think it's like an exit scam because he's kind of at that point where he doesn't know what to do as a single dev because he's just stumped. Like sometimes you just don't know the answer to something, and that's when multiple devs help because someone will be like, oh, well I know, like in here we do this, and that's what keeps it going. So I think when it's like a single dev, it definitely makes it a lot harder to like I guess keep the bot maintained well.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think that's one of the main reasons going back to Cyber. Like, at the moment, yes, Cyber does well on Footlocker EU sometimes, but in US, from what I've heard from you guys, it's not even doing the best out there in Cyber. And the reason why it holds its value is, like you said, it's an OG, it's got a big team, a good part, they've got a lot of staff, community helpers, you can ask
questions.
That
reputation.
Exactly, and they'll answer real quick, and they've got an app. It's just the structure, and people even say that, like, it is easy to use if you think about it. Like, I can... you could probably teach someone how to use Cyber, the basics of it, in just an hour or two. Do you know what I mean? And that's where the difference is. There's bots that just have that structure, and no matter what, even if Cyber tomorrow wasn't even working, I can guarantee you for the next 3 months it'll still be a high price. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Were you guys there between the time 3.0 and 4.0? Or sorry, but just before 4.0 release?
I was, yeah. I was in the scene.
Yeah. So I don't know if you, because I ran like a bot market tracking platform back in 2018 and early 19, and we tracked Cyber, and basically all the other bots at the time were sort of fluctuant, and this is when bots were like all the good bots were like hovering around like $1K to $1.5K dollars, which now like would be like crazy. Imagine if you could get bots for that price nowadays, which worked. But I mean, back then that was a norm, but Cyber was, I think it was lifetime back then was maybe around like 2.7 to 3K. And this is a time when the bot wasn't functioning. This was before they released 4.0. They were saying we're going to put all our effort into 4.0, so we're not dropping any new updates. It dropped in the space of like 3 or 4 months between 3.0 and like before 4.0 dropped. It dropped maybe like the matter of a few $100s. It dropped about 10% in value. And that's for a bot which didn't function.
Like right now, like
exactly.
I wouldn't say it's really performing that well on US. Except like Shopify does all right because it has a good Shopify module, but like for me at least, like its Footsite module doesn't do anything. Every time I run Supreme, the bot freezes and dies. So like I think they're putting all their focus into it, but like if you look at like what you were just saying, like the prices honestly went up. It's gone up just because of like it's Cyber.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, cyber, but yeah. It's a brand image. It's a brand image that every other, to put it bluntly, it's a brand image that every other sneaker bot aspires to achieve, but none can really do it. And I think that personally, the way I see it is the way to do it is through prolonged transparency and good quality marketing rather than through hype marketing. But different bots do it in different ways, and it's, you know, there's no one way to do marketing, and whatever you do, it's fine. I think the key is, one thing we see in our community is a lot of things get exaggerated / manipulated to make it look like some things are better than they are. So for people who are getting into botting, I often get asked in my group and on Twitter from other people is, what do you think of this bot? Is it a good bot? I saw they got XYZ success, and yeah, that's great, but things don't add up. You know, when a site drops like 300 stock, but then 6 different bots have all hit like 1,000 pairs, it doesn't really add up. So there's certain things which I think in sneaker Twitter, and this is the thing with an unregulated community, which is what we are, is that there's going to be a lot of bullshit, and there's no one telling anyone not to do that. And the number of scam bots that we've been through, I mean, you know, and they've literally not been penalised for it. I mean, how many people have got to get scammed in this community for something to actually happen? I mean, and we've got like a vigilante in the form of Top Keg recovering everyone's money, but I mean, without him, like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like all the bots, like for example, like Brisk, like the bot worked literally on the North Face drop only. It was like what 2018, I think. It was like it worked on that drop only, and then didn't work on a drop since. And then it worked on another North Face drop and then just died. Like, exactly. And nothing happened. Or like right now you have Phantom that's literally not doing anything, but all these people are still paying renewals, and stuff like that. But I wanted to jump back to the whole like marketing aspect, which you were talking about earlier, like marketing and PR, because like essentially we all do that right now. Like we all do that for our own channels and stuff like that. And those are one thing I always get asked is like, people are like, oh, why don't you take these proxy sponsorships or group sponsorships when they reach out to you? It's because, like, for us, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but, like, I feel like for a lot of people as a whole, like, you want to promote products that you know are good because, like, your users trust you. Like, I've always said this, like, I could have 30 proxy sponsors right now if I wanted, but I want to only promote the proxy sponsors that I know are good and that, like, I know have good success. Because, like, some people just chase it for the money and they go and, like, oh, I have 30 proxy sponsors. Some of them are paying me commissions and stuff like that, and they just do it for that. But then, like, the proxies suck. And then when you actually promote something, people don't believe you or don't actually trust that, you know, what you're doing for your own brand is, like, good because you're just trying to, like, be money hungry and stuff like that. So, like, I don't know, that's one thing I've always, like, gone by because, like, people always ask me, like, oh, why don't you take more? Why do you only have, like, 4 or 5? And it's just because, like, I try and stay smaller and show the ones that are actually good than take, like, 30 of them, like, right away and all that. Like, there's been people in the community who, like, came in, took a bunch, and then, like, broke up with them, and it looks terrible when you're, like, constantly dropping and joining companies. It just doesn't look good.
No, I completely agree with you there. It's a big part in it, and unfortunately there is still people out there that are promoting these products simply just for the money. And like, in one aspect, yeah, you've got to respect the money, but the other aspect is how much do you value your viewer base, and then that's all it is really. Is do you actually care about these viewers? And if you really want to grow your YouTube, you've got to be clear with everything. And I think one of the main reasons why, like, by no means I haven't got a big user base or a big viewer base, but something that I do try to be with is clear with everyone. I'll only promote something that I personally use, and I never ask for money kickbacks for things I promote. Yes, I maybe ask for some sort of plan from referrals or something, but I'm not looking, especially for me, I do it more as a hobby botting at the moment. It's not really for the money, and obviously making money on the side, you can't complain. But I agree with chasing the bag as much as you want, but I think there's a moral section of it, and when it comes to people, essentially you're scamming people if you're promoting something that doesn't work, and that's I'm a big no on that, and I completely agree with what you're saying.
Like, I've had people ask me and be like, oh, you only do it for the money, you only took this for the money. Like, people don't realize most companies don't pay. Like, you don't really get paid for most companies. It's usually only, like, sponsored videos in which you get paid for and stuff like that. But, like, even if I didn't make money from, like, what I did, like, in terms of YouTube or anything like that, like, I would still do it. Because, like, it's not like that money is changing my life in an aspect. Most of the money I made from YouTube, I put right back into buying proxies and stuff like that anyway. So, like, stuff like that makes no sense. Or even, like referral money or stuff like that. Like, or when I did, like, sponsored videos, and I did, like, a sponsored video for, like, A&B and stuff like that. Like, all the money I made from that stuff, I just put right back into botting. Like, it's not like I'm, like, selling out and doing all this for, like, the money. Because it's like, yeah, they're paying you. It's sort of just like your little, like, fee for, you know, doing the video for them. But, like, it's not like you're just selling out. Like, and if I do, like, sponsored stuff, I always make sure to say, like, people know it's a sponsored video. Because then, like, obviously I don't want people to think, like, oh, I'm 100% supporting this or stuff like that.
No, I'm completely with you with that, to be fair, and it's a big part of it, and you just got to be careful now. Like, some people who grow really fast, you can tell who's in it for the long run and who's in it just for that quick money, and the ones that are in it for the long run, you can almost tell that, you know, they're uploading consistently. I'm pretty sure everyone here started YouTube because of the fun of it. I mean, it is fun. I remember, like, my first ever video I did, I got a dislike, and my first like was a dislike, and it was a hate comment. And I'm not joking, I was that close to quitting, because it was literally after one video, my first was a hate comment. It was one of them comments where, oh, I'm never gonna get 5 minutes of my life back or something like that. And when you start, it does hit you. But, like, now, like, getting hate comments, you laugh at them, and then I
get hate comments all the time. So yeah, I'm just like,
bro,
like, cool. Me. Don't watch my channel. I don't really care. Like,
yeah.
I only get one, like, once a month, maybe. Like, it doesn't happen that often. I don't know. Maybe people aren't actually watching my videos, but I like going back on the first 1 through 5 videos, because it cracks me up to see where I was and where I am today. And it's like, with each video that I try to make, I always try to make some improvement over the last one. Like, was some editing technique, or maybe it's character, you know, because at the end of the day, we all develop a character when we're
You ever look back on your old videos and just think how cringy they were, and just wish you never uploaded them in the first place?
Yeah, yeah. Right.
Been there too many times.
We are coming to quite long. I reckon we should do just a little couple last topics that I would like to personally ask people, because a lot of people are going to be watching this and might not know where to start, and they do want to start. And at the end of the day, botting is something very good. Yes, it may take a lot of money, but it can be very lucrative at the end of the day. But this is what I'm going to talk about is if someone was coming to you and they said, I have $5,000 dollars, no, we'll say $7,000, £5,000, about the equivalent. I want to start botting. I've got all the time in the world. I want you to tell me which bot you're buying or bots. Remember, you've got to keep into running costs. You've got to keep into the fact of you've got to have money for shoes. What are you buying and what are you running? We'll start off with Bot Builder.
Oh my gosh. So I'm very analytical. It would take me, to even answer this question, it would take me time to sit down and really think about what I'm going to do with this money, because I'm very careful with money. So it's not going to be an all-in-one answer. But if I had, just for the purposes to answer this question, I would probably do things how I did, like I did in the past, and that would be I would buy mech, number one, because I think it's going to cook Supreme no matter what. And I think there's still money to be made on Supreme. I still believe in Supreme. I buy a lot of Supreme still. But just know who your buyers are and know who's buying this, and don't always rely on StockX or Go, because really you're taking a huge loss on your profit margin there. And then you definitely want an all-in-one bot. At this point, I mean,
It's a tough one.
it's not a lot. So, it's going to be tough for me to answer which all-in-one bot I would use, because the bots that I use right now are either not working or they're just too overly expensive. Fiber, Kodai, and Prism. Those are my three bots, and all of those bots are 5,000 plus, except for Kodai, it's a little under that. So it's very difficult for me to say, and I would normally put PD up there as a good bigger bot, but I don't think it's doing that well right now either. So really, guys, it's tough for me to give good advice on that. But if I had to say, if we could work with the budget a little bit, I would try to probably start off with something like Cyber and Mech. Those would be the two bots that I would choose. Proxies, I like to keep overhead costs as little as possible, but I would try to go with one of the sponsors that I personally use, just because I believe my sponsors, just as many of us have talked about today, and just go with a good DC plan, just some basic residentials, and then go from there, because at the end of the day, it's about your setup and your profile is the number one. Your profile should be your number one. So that's kind of where I would start out personally, if I had to start all over again. But
It is a tough one. I completely agree.
it really is.
Yeah, I'd almost quite to say is reevaluate everything. Do you really want to, if this is all your money, do you really want to put this into bottom? Because at the end of the day, is it worth just maybe going for manual and saving up your money before you can do it? But just for the sake of the question, I do appreciate your answer. And it is a hard question, because there is no best bot to buy. It all depends on circumstances, and like you said, profiles. It's more the actual setup you run rather than the actual bot sometimes. So yeah, we'll move on then. Burger Kicks Ricky, what are you saying?
All right, so I think when people come up to me, because I get a lot of questions, people are always like, "Yo, I'm trying to get in botting. Where should I start?" Usually, the first thing I always start with, I usually ask if they're in a cook group, because to me, a cook group is probably one of the most important things besides the bot. Because if you're gonna buy a bot and have no cook group, you're gonna get nowhere anyways. And to me, especially if someone doesn't have $5,000 or $10,000 to put up right away on a bot, I always recommend getting in a cook group, because most cook groups can help you even manually, by posting links for PS5s or stuff like that, stuff that you can hit manually and make money. And then while you're in the group, you can get help and learn about which bots are best for you and stuff like that from people who are more experienced. So I usually, when people ask me for recommendations, I never try and say oh, buy this bot or that bot, because some people think, oh, I'm gonna buy this, spend $2,000 and automatically hit. So I always tell them you should get a cook group first, because those will help you even if you don't want to buy a bot right away, and then go from there. But like I don't know, I guess especially right now with bots being like super expensive, like Bodybuilder said, like obviously I would recommend like Kodai or Prism to most people, or even Wrath, but obviously they're all like super expensive, so it's hard for people to get into it. So like I would probably recommend people to check out like rental services or something like that, or like just renting off of like Tidal, Botmart, or like WAP or something like that. Renting off places where they could rent bots for cheap and run them on certain drops, because then they're not burning all their capital, and they can use more of their money to spend on like good proxies or stuff like that to better their setup. Because like you can rent, like let's say you rent Wrath for a month for like $300, instead of dropping the what is it, like 6.5K or something like that on it, you drop $300 and you still have all that extra money left over you can use for like buying good proxies. Instead of maybe buying 25, you could buy 50 to 100 DCs, so you have more resources to run. So that's what usually I tell people to do, like rent a bot and figure all that stuff out first and just get going from there. Because buying a bot right away it's a big initial investment. So, and that way, because like some people will be like, oh, I have 5K to resell, and they buy a bot that's $4,500, and then they have $500 to buy shoes and everything else. Like, you gotta save some money for shoes, like being actually able to buy the shoes and buying proxies when needed and stuff like that. So, I don't know, that's what I would usually recommend to people.
I'd second that too. Just because also one thing to throw out there is, what if you don't like the bot and you just spend all this money and I got to go through the hassle of reselling it? The only other bot I can think of, because really we talked about a lot of bots that are either extremely cheap like PD, or they're extremely expensive like Kodai, Cyber, and Prism. The only middle ground bot that I'm even aware of at this point that does Shopify that seems to be doing okay is Mech AIO, and I want to say it's around $2,500. So
Yeah,
I've never used
like,
it though.
It's like around like $2,000, $2,500.
No, Mech's a good one, I think, especially in today's climate, because it's up and coming. I think now's a good time to buy it as it's sort of going up. Obviously not as established as the other bots at the minute in terms of its AIO capabilities, but I mean, with what we've seen in its supreme ability and how consistent it's been season after season, you know, like we were discussing earlier about Velox, about how good it. Oh, did he just die? Sorry, not him. His computer. Okay. I mean, I'm still recording. Should I just carry on? All right, cool. Yeah. So what I was saying about Mech was, we've seen how consistent they've been when other bots such as Velox and stuff have fallen off. But Mech's just, you know, it's ridden out every season. It's constantly hitting supreme. If they've got a team anything like that for their AIO segment, I mean, they're headed to good places.
Yeah, I think I do agree with that, because like they did have some issues like this past couple of months, but obviously like their Yeezy supply module right now is probably one of like the best out there, and their foot sites has been doing actually very well, as seems, which they've been doing good. And like Shopify is just, you know, obviously Shopify. Most modules in Shopify are fairly good because there's not much to do in terms of a whole lot of bot protection and stuff, because it's usually captchas and stuff like that. But
no, I get that, to be fair. And it is hard, like choosing your first bot. It's a big decision, because at the end of the day, that's the bot that could put you off reselling and put you off the whole game, or that's the bot that could kickstart your career in botting. And you see people that they are making livings out of this. They are making some, like, they are like rich. I know there's no other way to say it, but some people are balling from this. And there's people that you don't even post, you know, their success or anything. That I like to call them the secret cookers. These people are literally, there's some people that you don't even know about they're making bread. That's all they care about. They're botting, they're getting these pairs in. They're not flexing it, and that's where it comes to the other thing. Like Sai mentioned it before, especially with some PRs. I'm not saying Wrath, of course, but I'm saying with the whole we took 80% of stock, and then you look at another bot, we took another 70% of stock, and you're thinking, how does this add up? You don't know what's true to it, and that's where the big issue is with botting. And it's finding that bot that has good user success, but also sometimes you have got to spend that big money.
Yeah, agreed. So sorry, I'm just gonna invite myself to give my suggestions for the bot now. So 5K was a budget, right?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm gonna have a bit of a hot take on this.
I'm all for it.
screw sneaker botting, go buy yourself a good retail bot, buy a /24 subnet of IPs, rent out a bot every week for sneakers. Bob's your uncle.
You know what? The reason why I think that's actually a good idea is because, like we were saying before, random resale at the moment, it is booming. Like, I remember when PS5s were popping off, someone would literally tweet and like, people like complain to me for botting, and this person hit 50 PS5s in a space of literally half an hour, and this is when they were doubling their money. And like,
I made so much money off PS5s when they first dropped. Like, it was insane. I was making like $500 or $600 a PS5, and they were fairly easy to hit too. Like, Amazon dropped, and it was an easy manual. Like,
nah, it is crazy, and I do like that take on things because it's a whole different viewpoint of it. Going back to what I would think, first of all, like I said, you'd have to evaluate everything, your circumstances, because that is a big factor. But in terms of EU, as I said, I think bots don't really go up and down as much as US. You have your bots that hit your certain sites, and they consistently tend to hit the certain sites. And we talked about before, I do think Flare is a very good budget option for EU, and I think it's 2,000 to 3,000 if you want the lifetime. Even if you want the renewal, I think it's only $1,000. And to be fair, like, it has a fairly big user base. It has good support. And that's really what you want. Yes, you might not hit crazy clips on things, but you'll learn from there. You'll build up your capital on a say beginner bot or a low end bot, and then you can look into maybe some massive bots that, you know. I've always wanted to bot US, to be honest. Like, I'm getting fed up of EU, and that is something I do want to work up to be honest. Because the problem is you just don't know where to start, and that's the problem of it all. And like, it's the same as if I told you, like, go bot Foot Locker EU. I know it's kind of the same with foot sites, but it isn't. At the end of the day, you get cancels, we don't get cancels. But however, our drops they work so much differently, and it all is just sometimes you've just got to go for it. And you can only do so. You've got to obviously be careful with what you buy and stuff. But I see too many people, like, I get so many people messaging me saying, I'm going to buy this bot, I'm going to go for it, and then they never do. They keep doing research on it and never do. You learn from your mistakes. Don't be stupid and make massive mistakes, but I'm sure everyone here has made a mistake before with losing a bit of money. Me personally, when I first started, I bought a raffle bot, and I didn't even know what a raffle bot was. I thought that was a normal first come first serve bot. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's been there. Like, it happens, and you learn from it, and you move on, and that's the best way of, you know, of learning. And I do believe in sometimes do your research and everything, but sometimes just go for it. As long as you're not, you know, never put money into sneakers that you're not willing to lose. That's my biggest thing. Same with all the stocks and stuff. If you were to wake up tomorrow and all of your bots gone, I want you to still be happy and you think to yourself that I'm not screwed over, because at the end of the day, botting's a gamble. There is nothing saying that tomorrow it could all be down the drain. You just don't know, and that's why you got to make your money while you can, but also be careful with what you're doing, because as much as it can be lucrative, you can unfortunately lose a lot of money.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why, like, when I buy bots, I try not, like, I've always tried not to pay, like, resale for bots, like, as much as I want, like, certain bots. Like, I've wanted Kodai for the longest time, but I can't pull the trigger on it, because I'm like, what happens if something happens and it tanks and I lose all this money and all that stuff? Like, so I'm always, like, super paranoid about that stuff.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think today is actually given a good, not only just a good overview of EU versus US, but it's also given people a good chance to know the reality of botting. As I said before, there's a lot of people who do just post the success, and they just think that is what botting is. You buy a bot, you plug it in, you click and play, and we all wish it was like that. Maybe it used to have been like that. I wasn't around for that, but unfortunately, like, it's just not how it is anymore. And I think that is going to be a good conclusion to the video. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. Not only great for coming on the video, but it's actually been really nice talking to other YouTubers. I do believe the sneaker community is quite closed off. A lot of people keep to themselves, and it's been really, I really do thank you enough for coming on, because it's been just great knowing people.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And we can, you know, we like in the future now, like, if you, like, you know, you want to run a different site, you know, you've got each other, and that's what I like about the whole game, is we're all here to help each other. We're all here to supply. The only reason we do YouTube really is to help others, and you enjoy the process, and I do really believe in that. So I think we'll close it off there. Does that sound good for everyone?
Does sound good.
Sounds good.
Everyone, go check out all the channels. Obviously, I'm not sure whose channel is going on at the moment, but go. All links will be in the description for all videos. And hope you guys do have a good rest of your day and good luck in all your releases. Thank you to everyone, and we'll call it for today.